Member for Kalgoorlie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this legislation, and as previous members have said, the bill paves the way for the introduction of the two-year trial of the National Disability Insurance Scheme using the WA My Way model, and the model will be trialled in two areas, including one in the lower southwest, which takes in the shires of Augusta, Margaret River, Brook, Bridgetown, Greenbushes, Busselton, Donnybrook, Balingup, Manjimup and Nannup, and at the same time the Commonwealth Government National Disability Insurance Agency model will operate in the Perth Hills from July 2014. And by trialling the two different approaches, an independent evaluation can be done to compare the merits of each. And the evaluation's outcomes will then form the basis of future changes to the disability delivery of disability services. By way of background, on Monday the 5th of August 2013, the Prime Minister and the Premier of Western Australia signed an agreement for disability reform in Western Australia, and it was for this two-year launch commencing on the 1st of July. The launch in Western Australia will offer eligible people with a disability and their families and carers the reassurance that they will get reasonable and necessary care and the support they need over their lifetime. Under the agreement, the Commonwealth and Western Australia governments will contrast two approaches to the delivery of services in different locations, as I mentioned. And this is being done in order to allow genuine comparison of the merits of the National Disability Care model and the West Australian My Way model, and also allow the lessons to be shared during the launch period before it's taken into the full rollout. The state government's My Way model will progressively be implemented in the lower southwest region, the Coburn-Kwinana area, with additional funding from the Commonwealth and state governments to flow from July 1 into those other areas mentioned. The My Way model was also being rolled out in the Goldfields 12 months ago, and it has been delivering this new service model in the Goldfields. The eligibility criteria developed for the Disability Care Australia will be used in both of the West Australian launch models. The My Way model will use the same eligibility rules that will apply across the nation. And like the Disability Care Australia launch sites in New South Wales and Victoria, both of the West Australian launch approaches will apply to all eligible people under the age of 65 at the time of the launch, rather than being limited to more specific age groups. Of course, being the member for Kalgoorlie, I was interested to know why the Goldfields My Way site was not included in the launch. And I've been told that the agreement between the Commonwealth and state governments required that the two launch sites have similar sized populations and demographics to ensure the comparability in the evaluation of the two approaches. And so while the Goldfields will not be part of the two-year launch, eligible people will still be able to use the My Way approach within the existing funding allocations. And My Way in the Goldfields will continue to align with the key principles of Disability Care Australia, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and will also include increased choice and control, local decision-making and decentralised funding. Mr. Speaker, the bill provides safeguards to ensure that people cannot move residents to access My Way. A person will be eligible if they are living in the relevant trial area as of the 1st of July 2014. The Commissioner, however, will have overarching discretion regarding the eligibility in regard to location. And the steps involved in accessing the My Way scheme are to make an appointment with the coordinator. No external referral is necessary, so you can self-refer. An assessment is made, that is a holistic assessment to develop plans and goals for the individual. And if an application is successful, the My Way coordinator develops a plan, and that entails access to services and determines what funding, if any, is reasonable and necessary. The plans are reviewed every 12 months. So the My Way scheme has a greater focus on tailored planning and relationships when compared to NDIS. The NDIS scheme is more sort of aligned to a Centrelink administrative process. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the launch period, an independent comparative evaluation of the services and outcomes will take place, and I do agree with the member for Maylands that we do need to have exactly how that evaluation will be carried out to be defined, and the results of the evaluation will feed into any future disability reform in Western Australia and the legislative review of the operation of disability care across Australia. The question has been raised today in this debate about a national injury insurance scheme and when will it be implemented, and the member for Armidale spoke about this in detail and pointed out that the need for no-fault insurance in Western Australia is one that has been argued over quite a considerable period of time, and we need the West Australian government to make a decision on that front, and consistent with agreements with all other governments. The costs associated with providing care and support for people who sustain catastrophic injury in WA, we need to have consistency of response to them. Now, as it stands, if you suffer catastrophic injury through and there is no fault, in Western Australia you're on your own. In other states of Australia there actually is some assistance. Mr. Speaker, last year as one of the co-conveners of the Parliamentary Friends of Disability Reform, we actually had a function here at Parliament House to focus on the need for an introduction of no-fault insurance and to take away the current inequity of those who are compensable compared to those who are not, and the onerous nature of seeking compensation through litigation, which cannot adequately predict the needs of a lifetime of disability. And both myself and the Honourable Sue Ellery, who is the co-convener of the WA Parliamentary Friends of Disability, welcomed several guest speakers that evening to discuss this topic, and in particular Dr Sudhakar Rao, who is the Director of State Trauma, spoke and gave a very clear indication that the fact that, whether or not you're compensable having suffered a catastrophic injury can have a very strong influence actually on the outcome of your rehabilitation and your ability to return to work. He commented on the fact that people who suffer a disability as a result of an accident or something where there is no ability to claim insurance have the additional trauma and stress of court battles and so on, which actually does hold them back. He actually related that more than 10 years ago, Perth's major hospital implemented a world first in the treatment by bringing back patients with traumatic injuries every 3 months to see how they are progressing. And he said what he learnt early on was that WA was not getting the same outcomes as their Victorian colleagues, where the length of stay in hospital was shorter and the path back to work quicker. He said that on average, getting someone back to work in 3 months was a good predictor of recovery, and Victoria has had no fault compensation scheme for some years. And so, there really is actually a benefit there for the economy and the community in having a no-fault insurance. And that evening as well, we heard from two young men with disability. One, Nilson Boutet, who was a FIFO worker and injured in a motorcycle accident, which rendered him a paraplegic, and he was deemed uncompensable, and has had a terrible time and a long and difficult rehabilitation, and is very significantly financially disadvantaged. in comparison to the other speaker, Mr Crispin Roberts, who's a project officer with the Department of Sport and Recreation. He's been a quadriplegic for 10 years, having suffered a rugby injury, but described how the insurance that was available there and the support from his team had actually made life so much better for him. In conclusion, Mr Speaker, I note that the member for Maylands raised the question of the future of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and hoping that it would be implemented in full as planned. And I received an email just a couple of days ago from John Della Bosca, who is the convener of the Every Australian Counts campaign team, and he basically, the headline of his email was "NDIS a farce?" ? And Mr Speaker, I hope that hand gesture was not in relation to my speech. Is it
not
getting
at all,
long-winded?
member. It's in relation to something else.
Okay. Is it time to wind up? I apologise.
Take your time. Take your time.
But anyway, I just would like to sort of get the key points from Mr Della Bosca's email, because I think it will give some comfort to the member for Maylands. And that is that he noted that last week our Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, stated clearly that NDIS would go ahead, and that on the 31st of March he and the WA Premier Colin Barnett signed a historic agreement to roll out these 3 NDIS trial sites. And then, there is a quote that our Treasurer, Joe Hockey, expressed some concern that the scheme could end up as a big farce, but finally last night, and this was written on the 1st of April, the Minister in charge of NDIS, Mitch Fifield, stated that the Commonwealth Government is, and I quote, determined to implement NDIS in full. And so that is good news. And in that email was a graphic which actually describes that the projected cost of NDIS is going to be 0.5% of Australia's total GDP. And the Productivity Commission's report recommending the NDIS was clear about the future economic benefits of the scheme. The NDIS will allow more people with disability to gain employment, will allow carers to return to the workforce, and will focus on early intervention to reduce the spend over a person's life. And I do note some of the questions raised by the member for Maylands about the rollout of this scheme, and I believe that many of them are valid, and I'm pleased she raised them. But in the overall scheme of things, I think that people with disabilities are very pleased to see the direction that we're going as far as caring for people who find themselves disabled either from the beginning of life or by some traumatic or catastrophic event. And we need a system where everybody is treated equally and where everybody can be expected to have similar outcomes. At the moment, where if you can sue somebody or you're covered by some insurance scheme, your outcomes are far better than those who suffer a traumatic accident or event in a situation where they can't claim some sort of insurance. That's something that I think we as a government need to fix, and I'd be very keen to see, I think it's in the portfolio of the Minister for Transport actually, to see that we have a no-fault insurance. It's the Treasurer, is it? Yeah, so no-fault insurance scheme. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on this bill, which I support. Thank you.